one of the things that I think that we've gotten into is you folks walk into a class and you expect science to be only about science, or you expect math to only be about math, you expect social studies to only be about social studies and not involve everything else. So what we're trying to do is wrap all those things together and put them together in a way that involves you in what we call an authentic way, or give you purpose to come into school. And that work, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of planning, it takes a lot of collaboration from your teachers. Because your teachers are required to teach particular things. They're called standards. How many people have heard of standards or learning targets, or have you seen I can statements up in your classroom? So you have all those things. So they have to teach those things, but what I want them to do is blend those together. So that instead of you're just in science class or that you're just in social studies class, now you're part of a project, you're part of an expedition, you're part of an excursion where you have to use all those skills to do something. And not just to do anything, but to do something with purpose, to do a presentation to the public, to do something, maybe it might be around fundraising. So one of the reasons that Mr. Sullivan is here is he has a part in that. And he has a part in authentic learning, where you will be submitting things to him that he will then display in the newspaper. So that's kind of the reason that he's here. What we want to do, continue to do, is partner with the community and have people from the community come in to work with us. Because my belief is that when we have people come in and work with us in the community, that makes your learning here better. It makes you feel more involved. It makes you feel more like you have a purpose in what you do here. So he's going to talk about the relationship that you're going to have with him and the work that you're going to do. And then the beauty of it is we can open up the paper and we can see your work. And the community can see your work. And then everybody goes, Mr. Patton, he's doing such a great job at the junior high. And I go, yes, thank you very much.
And Mr. Patton, they get to check off standards. They can meet their learning targets through the work that they do.
How many people think it would be awesome to show a future employer work that you did in the newspaper? How many people think that that work that you submitted and is showing in the newspaper would help you get a job? Yeah. So these are the things that I want to start doing here at the junior high on a more regular basis. So that they're talking about expeditions and excursions and all. You don't have to know all that stuff right now, but what you can expect is every team of teachers here will be kicking off something for you in the springtime. And they'll have different themes, they'll have different purposes, and those will change from year to year. So if you're a 6th grader, you're likely to go through about 6 expeditions by the time you leave this school. If you're an 8th grader, you're going to go through 1. Where are my 8th graders? Okay? Doesn't mean it's not going to be fun, doesn't mean you're not going to have a good time with it. Hopefully you'll get to the high school and go, man, I wish we did more of what we did in 8th grade at the high school. And that tells me we're doing a good job. So, with that, I'll leave it to Mr. Sullivan.
Good morning. How is everybody?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you for asking. My name is Shawn Sullivan. I am the editor of the Sanford News, have been so for about 7 years now. They've gone fast. Like you, I'm from here. I went to junior high here. And the funny thing is, in terms of the Sanford News, is that when I was 10 years old, I used to deliver the Sanford News. So in a way, I've kind of ended up back at my first job. So basically what we do is we cover, it's a weekly newspaper, comes out on Thursdays, and we cover the entire town of Sanford, and actually some of its surrounding communities as well, but primarily Sanford. It's myself as editor. We have a reporter, a wonderful reporter named Ellen Todd. We have a sports editor named John Koshin. And between the 3 of us, we fill the newspaper with the news and sports of the previous, of the week leading up to the issue that comes out. It's a big responsibility. You have to cover the entire community, but it's something that we enjoy. Does anybody want to have any guesses, take any guesses as to what that entails? What type of things we cover? Does anybody want to take a guess at that? Any hands?
Big games.
Yep, cover big football games, definitely, on Friday nights and other sports, basketball, baseball, field hockey, and soccer. How about in terms of our government? What kind of things do you think we cover?
Elections?
Definitely elections. We just had a big one, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
we did. Mr. Cody was elected mayor. And we also have town councilor, or rather city councilor, still getting used to saying that, we're a city now. He was re-elected. We also have 2 new school committee members, and so it was definitely an exciting election. Do you have a question?
What goes on in schools?
Absolutely, the school committee beat, and also what goes on in schools. One of my favorite things is to come to schools such as yours and do stories, feature stories, news stories about what's going on. Our responsibility is to cover the entire community, and in a way, that's what's going to happen here. Whereas we cover the entire town or city of Sanford, you're going to be covering Sanford Junior High School. You're going to need a lot of ideas because you're going to be submitting a lot of columns, all of which will go through your teachers and eventually arrive at my desk. And I'll be going through them and editing them, preparing them for publication. And yes, a lot of you will get to see your written words in print. And it's my hope that you develop as reporters, sure, getting all the details of a story, but also as writers. How many people in here enjoy writing? Wow, that's a lot of you. Nice. Writing is an important skill. Writing is a very important skill. Many of the things that I've been able to do in life has been because I've been a lifelong writer. Ever since I was 5 years old, I've been writing. My godparents gave me an old typewriter from the 1950s, and I started pounding away on it and writing stories and things like that. And here I am today, and because of my writing ability, I've been able to do all sorts of things. Travel, get involved with certain things. So if you can develop your writing skills, that is a vital key to communication. And communication is so important. The words you choose when speaking to other people, it's just so important. And developing your writing skills, even if you don't have intentions of growing up to become a writer, is very important. That's how we make connections, through communicating. Sometimes speaking, as I am to you now, but also through writing, especially through writing. So, does anybody have any ideas as to what you would need to do when covering your school? Well, we'll discuss subjects, possible ideas for what you can write about later. But what are the type of things do you feel you need to do to prepare a good column or a good article?
Take notes.
Yes, take notes. You definitely want to have, whenever you interview somebody, you want to have a notepad with you, or I don't know if an iPad maybe, anything to record or to jot down what your subject is telling you. Now, when you have gathered that information, what kind of information should you be gathering? Anybody? You learned this, I think, in English class. In the back?
Information on the subject.
Excuse me?
Information on the subject.
Exactly, which is comprised of what? 5 things at least, at the very least. I had to count them. Anybody? You?
Who, what, where, and when.
Exactly, and there's one more.
What?
Why? Who, what, when, where, why. You got to cover all those bases, because what you write is going to go into the newspaper and is going to be read by thousands of people. Thousands of people. Thousands of people read the print edition that comes out every Thursday, but then we put the paper online. And so you have people who once lived here but maybe live away. I have some friends in Philadelphia and Boston. They tune into the paper to find out what's going on online. So you're going to go online too. So who knows how many thousands of people are going to be reading what you have to write. So what you want to do is you don't want to leave them with any questions. You don't want them to read your piece and say, well, yeah, but they didn't explore this. They didn't explore that. So you get to cover all the bases. Who, what, when, where, why. Now, who has any ideas on a good way to start an article? What do you think, bless you? What do you think is most important?
The book.
Excellent. Yes, that's precisely what I was going to say. You need a hook. Because you also, in terms of covering all the bases and doing a thorough job, you also have to interest the reader. I'd like to say entertain the reader as well. News isn't necessarily entertainment, but if you don't hook in the reader right off the bat, then you don't have their attention and they don't read your article. So rather, for example, if you go to an event, which do you think is preferable? What would be a good event to go to? Well, we'll say a football game. You mentioned football. If you go to a football game, what do you think is more interesting to the reader? To read about the game in chronological order, meaning start writing about that first quarter and then write about those final moments, or do you think it's more interesting to determine what during that game was the highlight and to start with that? I suppose that was almost a rhetorical question,
What
but
was the highlight?
exactly. You want to take, so when you speak with people, when you interview people here at the junior high, whether it's a teacher, a classmate, anybody, the principal, what you want to do is you want to listen to what they're saying and you want to take notes, but you also want to find what is the most interesting, what is the most important, what is the most pressing thing that they're saying. If it's a feature story meant to be entertaining or just enjoyable, what was the most fascinating thing that they said? Everybody has something fascinating to say. We all have stories. One of the things I like about what we do at the Sanford News is that I believe that there's no story too small or insignificant. We're all in this city together. We're all living here day by day, and we all have stories. Each and every one of you has a story to share, whether it's about a talent you have, a place you've been, something you're doing, to be involved either in the school, in the community, something you want to do when you grow up. A perfect example, the dog park, right? There's an effort within this school. It started here and has branched out across the community, and that's to make a dog park come to Sanford. And guess what? They're succeeding. It's gotten approval virtually every step of the way, and soon, I don't know if any of you have dogs. I do. I have a little dog named Pepper. Pepper and your dogs will be able to go to this dog park, and it's all because your peers worked with their teacher to make it happen. I've enjoyed following that story. So see, you got stories right here inside the junior high. Does anybody have any ideas as to what that story ideas? Maybe something that I can be anticipating in the months ahead from you. Anybody have any ideas yet?
How we can change this town and what's going on in here?
Right, exactly. What you're going to do is you're going to be reporting on what's happening at the junior high. And that can be anything. It can be a fundraiser. I would recommend that if you have a fundraiser, say in February, you might want to include that in your January writings. Because if you have something that you want somebody to be aware of in advance, you also have to think ahead. You'll be doing some reflective writing, I'm sure, meaning if you have a school assembly or something fun, you write about it afterwards. But you also want to think long-term, between now and, I guess, June, right? The program's going to go through June. Now through June, you also want to think ahead. So if you have something big and exciting to write about in May, you want to put it on your radar, maybe start developing it in March or April. Well, definitely send it to me by April so that we can put it in the paper ahead of the event. So you always have to think ahead. You have to be in many dimensions. You have to be in the present, but you also have to report on the past, in your case probably the immediate past, unless you're interviewing somebody who has an experience that they want to recall from years ago or whatnot. But you also have to think and prepare for the future as well. And then another thing, you have to keep your eyes trained for where the stories are. Sometimes they come to you. A lot of the stuff that's in the paper is because we follow what's called a beat. There's the city council beat, there's the school committee beat, there's the sports beat, there's the crime beat. And so sometimes the work kind of comes to you. You know there's a meeting you got to go to. You know there's a student council meeting that you may need to go to. You know there's a sporting event that you might need to go to. And some of it you kind of have to find yourself. And you do that by developing your eye and ear and listening to people when they speak with you and having interest in others. By showing interest in other individuals, you can ask them about their lives or what they're doing. And you'll see that they have stories. Everybody has a story to tell. So you have to be on the lookout for stories too. Another important thing is we've discussed covering the old who, what, when, where, why. We've discussed the hook. You're going to have the hook. What's the most interesting or most important or most fascinating piece of the conversation or the interview that you had? You take that and you move it up to the front. I would encourage you to find ways to stay interesting throughout and also to end strong. You don't want to gather your information, take the most important stuff, but then have your article or your column kind of peter out as it goes along. You have to kind of find a strong finish too, so that you leave an impression. So that maybe somebody will read your article and say, what's your name?
Alex.
Alex? Wow, Alex did a real good job there. I'm looking forward to what he'll be doing in the future. So you want to do something like that. And another important thing is, and I bet you hear this in English class, editing, what I do, revising, different drafts. If you have a writing ability and you enjoy writing, you've been doing it for a while, chances are the first thing that you produce might have some quality or merit to it. But the truth is, it will always be better on a second draft. You have to go through it, and you have to analyze what you've written and make sure that you've covered all the bases, that you're clear. If you used 5 words to say something, is there a way to say it in 2 or 3? Like, for example, in terms of adverbs, you can say, she shut the door loudly, right? There's a lot of words, it's kind of clunky. Or you can say, she slammed the door. So you can always ask yourself, I've taken these so many words to say what I'm trying to say. Is there a better way, a shorter way, a more punchier way to say what I'm trying to say? So you have to analyze your words, your word choice. So I definitely encourage you, before you submit your works to your teachers and they submit it to me, that you go through what you've written and that you take pride in it and examine it and have fun. It's actually kind of a fun process if you know how to go about it. And it's actually kind of fascinating. I know on the times when I've written something and I've had to go by it, through it word for word, it's very interesting. And you make yourself a sharper writer as well. Now, let's see. Yes, I should probably take questions now. Anybody have any questions? I saw a few hands almost go up.
Those people with index cards.
Index cards, I'll
So-
call them that.
How would we be able to get a story that we've found to you?
To me, my understanding is that you'll be writing it almost on assignment and giving it to your teacher, right? And then your teacher will be emailing, dropping it by the office. We're just down the street from you. So that's how you'll get your work to me.
Okay.
Will we work with other students?
Oh, absolutely, yes. Thank you for saying that. Collaboration is important. Enjoy that. Enjoy working together. You may make some friends that you might not have otherwise met or get to know. Collaboration is going to be key. Have a lot of fun with that.
What do you like to write about?
What do I like to write about? I like the human interest stories. What's a good example? Well, I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of interesting people in town and throughout my career, which started in Massachusetts about 10 or 11 years ago. And that's what I enjoy, somebody who has a fascinating story to tell. Trying to think who recently. I've interviewed some Pearl Harbor survivors. There's one gentleman that comes to mind. He has since passed away. And I've written about, not a tough question, but off the top of my head, I can't remember who I found most fascinating. But I'm fascinated by people's lives. I enjoy hearing people discuss their lives. So whenever I'm called upon, I'm going to go meet somebody on Monday who's 100 years old. And that's a long life lived, right? So I'm going to be looking forward to speaking with her about the things she's seen, the history that she has seen, the things she's learned along the way, and then of course there's the token question of what her big secret is, having made it to 100. I always wonder what that one is. So, people story, yeah, I like those. You, sir?
Did you ever make like an article that people didn't like?
Oh, sure, yes. Yeah, sometimes in the newspaper business you're called upon, often called upon to write about crimes. Sometimes, the government has to tackle big issues, controversial issues, and where people feel definitely on one side or another, and you have to be objective and tell both sides. And that's definitely part of working at a newspaper. Sometimes you have to write about the occasional crimes or scandals or controversies or things like that. And yeah, that's definitely part of it.
What's your favorite article you read?
My favorite article that I wrote? Well, off the top of my head, and I guess this was the Pearl Harbor person, the Sanford Springville Historical Society a couple years ago came into a postcard. I don't know how it got to them. Can't recall anyway. A postcard that somebody had that was discovered on one of the sunken warships in Pearl Harbor. And it was for somebody from Sanford who was at Pearl Harbor and was actually, I believe, reported dead. They had the obituary in the newspaper and everything, but he wasn't dead. He had survived. And somebody in town had a postcard that he sent that went down with the ship when we were attacked at Pearl Harbor. and somebody found it and it was all water, all watery and needed to be dried out and preserved. But finding out his story and writing about that story, the history of it, on the occasion of Pearl Harbor actually, was a lot of fun. Was a lot of fun. It's also fun, I think this answers your question, it's also fun to write about historical moments. I did enjoy covering the mayor's race, our first mayor, right, and the history of the city of Sanford. I enjoyed covering that. Sometimes there's somber occasions, like the closings of certain things, whether it's Emerson School or Jerry's Diner or St. Ignatius Church, where I went growing up. So to be there at those moments of Sanford's local history and to record them is a privilege, and I appreciate being able to do it and certainly enjoy it.
Have you written articles about the gardens that people are putting together?
Gardens?
Like the gardens in Rochester, they have the fountain at the high school.
Oh, sure, things like that, projects like that, absolutely. Healing Garden at the Cancer Care Center. I don't know that we've done stories, but if people send us materials, we're very happy to put them in. Goodall Hospital. A couple years ago, your predecessors here at the school had a garden in front. What was that?
The Pink Tulip Garden.
The Pink Tulip Garden. We covered that and was happy to do so. So yes, definitely gardens. And if that's actually an interest of yours, you may want to be thinking what you could do regarding that. So.
What's the most popular article you've written?
Popular?
Yeah.
I don't know. I know when you write a feature story about somebody in town and it kind of tells readers something about those individuals that they didn't know. I know those tend to go over big. I have a weekly column that I write just about life in general, whatever I'd like to write about that week, and sometimes I get responses to those, and that's nice. But the popular ones, there was one that we wrote recently about a gentleman in town who's trying to raise funds for some important surgery that he would like to have, and the fundraising efforts that he was undergoing. And we published that article, and we've got a lot of responses on that one, and that's been nice. And the article, I hope, has made a difference. I've watched the results of his fundraising climb since the article came out. So statistically, I don't know that I could prove it, but in my heart, I'd like to believe the article and therefore the Sanford News did make a difference in his efforts to raise funds for the procedure that he needs. So that's another thing to keep in mind as you choose your story ideas. You do have an opportunity to make a difference.
When will we first stop determining
Oh, I don't know. That might be a teacher question. When will they be first turning in?
We're working out a schedule right now, community by community. We're thinking we'll start that way.
Okay.
But we're also thinking that maybe it would be fun to have beats in the school and have kids across communities cover things that they're interested in. So we're working on that.
Nice.
We'll get more
And
from us.
I'll be there when they come in. I'll be ready for them. Who haven't I got? How about in the back there? People who has the index cards in the back. How about you? Yep.
How do you decide when you found a good idea to write?
One more time.
How do you decide when you found a good idea to write about?
How do you decide? That's tricky. Every week we have what's called a budget. And I know when you say budget, you think of money, but in this case, it's simply the list of stories that we'll be pursuing in the coming week. You kind of have to look in terms of immediacy and long term. If there's a story that kind of has a universal or timelessness to it, appeal to it, then you don't have to necessarily get to it right away. If by chance you're able to do so as a scoop, you should act on it quickly. That's another nature of the newspaper business, that nature of competition, the idea that there are other newspapers out there than the Sanford News. But all the reporters at the other newspapers are wonderful, and we all get along very well, and it's fun to go to events and have them be there too. So you have to take that into account. But if something's pressing, you definitely have to get to it right away, and you have to make allowances for it. That could make for a very busy week where you write many articles. So yeah, you have to take those things into account. Is this an exclusive story we have, and therefore should we act on it quickly? Is this pressing? Is it about something that people need to know about soon? Those type of things definitely weigh in on when we choose to do a certain story. How about the back? I've been pulling from the front. You, sir?
How does it make you feel when you change someone's life with a story?
Very good. It feels wonderful. It does. it does. Not the Sanford News, but at another newspaper. I wrote a story about, there's an organization called TOPS, and I don't know what it stands for. Actually, I think it's called Taking Off Pounds Sensibly. And somebody was involved in that program, and it changed their life, their health, their happiness. And I interviewed him, wrote his story, and evidently did it well enough that it inspired others. And the TOPS group in that community saw their membership increase by, I don't know, 10 or 11. People who decided to change their lives and get healthy, and that felt very good. And in the case of the gentleman that I just described, with trying to raise funds, I hope the paper, had an opportunity to help him. And it feels really nice when you know you've made a difference. We write editorials. I haven't touched upon that. An editorial is a commentary on something in the community. And sometimes when you take a stand, particularly on a tough issue, that can feel good. That can feel good to take a stand on something in terms, whether it's in terms of right or wrong, or whether it's in terms of just supporting one side or another. If you do it fairly, respectfully, courteously and professionally, you'll be all set. And it's nice. It's always good to feel like you make a difference. I'm sure you feel that in your lives, and that certainly translates to when you work at a newspaper as well.
Did it take a long time to get to where you are?
Sure. Yes, I graduated from college in the mid-90s, and as I started my journalism career, or as I'm equally inclined to call it, my writing career, I had to take smaller freelance jobs on my way to where I am now. For example, I once worked for the entertainment section on a freelance basis for the Journal-Tribune, the daily paper in the community. And every 4 or 5 weeks or so, I would go and interview anybody, musicians, actors, artists, anything along those lines, and met a lot of fascinating, talented people in the area. From there, I was able to parlay that freelance job of appearing in the Journal-Tribune every 3 or 4 weeks or so into something down in Massachusetts, the Stoneham Independent. And once a week, I was able to write an article, sometimes a feature story, but also news stories, so I was starting to branch out. From there, I went to a weekly newspaper called the Town Crier in Wilmington, Massachusetts, and became its full-time reporter. So after a few years of the Journal-Tribune, that Stoneham newspaper, once a week writing something, I actually landed a full-time job. And then I started as a reporter, and a few months later became editor of the paper. From there, stayed there for about 4 years, really enjoyed it, look back on it very fondly. And from there, I jumped to Foster's Daily Democrat, the daily newspaper out of Dover, New Hampshire, that owns and is the parent, as we say, of the Sanford News. And I was the Seacoast editor there. I was responsible for a few bureaus, namely the one in Portsmouth, but also the ones in York and Exeter, New Hampshire. And then, when the Sanford News position opened up, I didn't know it. I didn't know it until the position was available, but I became immediately interested in joining the Sanford News. I'd never considered it before. I don't know why, but once the position became available, it was like that. I was like, oh, I would very much enjoy that position, and I was right. I have enjoyed it. It's been a real privilege. It combines my love for my hometown, which I hope you have a love for our hometown as well, and my love of writing. It puts those two things together. So yeah, it took a while. And the key thing is, along the way, and this is something that you'll need to realize as you get older, you have to pay your dues. So where my heart was in writing and in newspapers. Had been around newspapers my whole life, even, remember I said I delivered them? But along the way I had to pay dues and take some interesting jobs. Retail management, for example, down in Boston. I also worked at the high school for a little bit. As the in-school suspension supervisor for a couple of years. My joke used to be I went 4 years without ever getting in school, and now I had it every day for 2 years. So you do have to pay your dues along the way, because while I was writing those freelance articles, that was not enough to earn a living. So you supplement that with other full-time work, and those are the dues you pay, and it pays off. So if you can grow up understanding that you'll need to do that, you'll be very successful, hopefully.
What type of degree do you need for your job?
Well, I mean, there's journalism degrees, and there's very good journalism schools. My degree is actually in communications, believe it or not, with an emphasis on film, not journalism. But I did take journalism classes in school, writing classes for magazines, newspapers, things like that. So a journalism degree you can't lose, but there's actually a few paths you can take to working in the newspaper business. And again, education is important. I'd encourage you to pursue it as far as you can go and want to go. But if you develop that writing skills, you'll find that that'll open up a lot of doors for you. Who have I not got to? Yes.
How long does it take to get published?
How long does it take to get published? Meaning, how long will it take for you once you submit an article and, okay, specifically you? Yeah, you'll submit them at the end of the month, right? And then I'll go through them, and within weeks they will appear in the paper, whichever one. I'm not sure of the process that your teachers or all of you have decided upon as to how many and from whom I'll receive articles. But yeah, you'll see a matter of a few weeks. You'll see yourselves in print. Alex, would you like to?
What do you think is the best part about your job?
Best part about my job. I like what I said, the combination of being able to write, but also about my hometown. I'm getting to know a lot about my hometown. Stuff I'll go out to an assignment and I'll think these are things I wouldn't know if I didn't have this job. It's very exciting to get to know many aspects of Sanford, especially being from here, to be able to learn its history, how its government works, what its schools are doing now, people that I would otherwise not meet. I've gotten to meet hundreds of people that I would not have otherwise got to meet. So I like that. I'm a people person, so that's probably the part I enjoy the most about the job. One more? Is there anybody? Then I can answer your question afterwards if you like. But who have I not gotten to? I don't.
Are there going to be the ability to have multiple kids have their
over the course of the school year?
No, over in a month. Will multiple kids have their?
Oh, no, it'll probably be once or twice a month. Yeah. And one of the things I like about this project that you're all doing is I like anything that kind of takes the Sanford News full circle in a way. And sometimes we have bound archives at the office, and I'll go look at them once in a while. And from the early 80s, there was a column. I don't know who the students were or where they are now, but there were two students, and there'll be more in this case, who wrote about the goings-on here at the junior high. So there were two junior high students who had a column in the early 80s. And I don't know how long they did it, but I just remember spotting it in the archives. And they had their pictures and everything. And this, in a way, is bringing that full circle. So I appreciate you all and everything that you're going to be doing. It's going to be nice for people in Sanford to find out what's going on here in the Sanford News. So remember, there's feature stories, there's news stories, like things that maybe the student council's doing or fundraisers you might have. And if your teachers permit you and give you the green light and final stamp of approval once you're finished, you can try, maybe one or two of you can work out who it should be, but you can try an opinion piece as well, in which you'll learn to express yourself in a persuasive and effective and professional manner. So I would encourage that as well. So anything that you would like to write about pertaining to the junior high, I am in support of, and will work with you and your teachers to make it work.
Mr. Sullivan, maybe one of our first pieces could be your visit.
Sure, if you like. That would be a twist. Yeah, it's a nice idea.
So some of you might want to think about writing a story about today and what happened today on one of our first pieces. Maybe you could even interview Mr. Sullivan a little further. All right, I think we have to go.
Sure.
A little over time, but thank you so much for coming.
Thank
Guys,
you, everybody. I've
for
enjoyed speaking
your
with you.
attention.